Our life brings lots of opportunities to learn, and I want to go through some of the events that happen and to see how I might learn, and at the same time to share with someone if interested. It's just a scene of this man at the 74 years old, so the situation may not apply to others, of course, but there could be some commonality. So the title of this is How to Overcome Our Communication Gap. But I want to say there could be a communication gap within ourselves too. The idea of the mini-me, different set of my view may conflict with each other. So we have to clear up all this communication, clarity, develop transparency, clarity with the law of nature to manifest. That's the name of the game. So let me go through quickly. Where should I start? The first event that I can think back is when I was playing with this lawyer. He's a professor of a fairly famous university, a game called pickleball. We had a chance to talk, and he's practicing the international law. And one of the points that he shared with me was interesting, that if you think about the U.S. as a country of law, and they can be very proud of it, except there may be an issue when you are dealing with other country and the situation pop up, and their view of that country's law may not fit to the way the U.S. thinks about their law. So he was talking about the case of him defending Al-Qaeda, and his research related to that was used in various ways. And the bottom line of that was that the U.S. can be too confident, overconfident, or sometimes possibly arrogant to think their law is most important, and therefore there could be a communication gap when it comes to the issues in the international law. I thought that's interesting, so it was the afternoon talk and not relating to my life, but I can connect to that thought. But more connecting to my thought, one of the easy ones to talk about is that this is within myself actually, or it could be me against the iPhone or Google. When it comes to have multiple machines like iPhone and Mac, I need to synchronize, and there was some issue about it, communicating between the machines. So as I looked into it, there's a password about Apple ID and how to process it, and that was part of the solution to synchronize. Except the word there was not clear, or my understanding was not clear, so it took time. Somehow I tried, didn't work. I checked on the Google search for the answer, tried, didn't work. So what do? I kind of go back to this calm and quiet mind, samadhi state, no mind state, relax. And after a while, I could come up with the answer, which is by reading the sentence very carefully. So it's kind of like reading each sentence, especially when it comes to the software, internet, and the use of this, common protocol. We have to have the logic. They have used it, so you have to read what they say like a legal sentence, logically. How to carefully read it and use this pure logic idea of how they do it, and then follow that. So I could resolve it, but took maybe 20, 30 minutes. A little frustrating, but it was okay. Here's another story. A little bit more frustrating, but that's life. And that's another example of the communication issue. And this is with my friend. She was to go out buying things, and she said, why don't you come up with ideas, because she is going to Costco, which we do quite often, every couple of weeks at least. And I said, why not buy a blueberry for me, and it may be better if it's frozen. I didn't say for me. Why don't you buy a blueberry, frozen one, because it's cheaper? Her answer, what did he say? You're cheap, or don't be concerned about the cheapness because it tastes good or something. And therefore I said, You can eat the fresh blueberry, but I can eat those frozen one because my idea is not for the taste, but more of the nutrition. But she just let go of that. And later I came up with the idea of, oh, could you then buy banana because the stock is getting low and it's very cheap in Costco. And her answer for that was that, well, come to think about it, she's doing some chore but didn't want to go spend too much time in Costco. So at the end, it sounded like she's not going to buy it, but see what happens. As she left after this conversation, I was a bit stunned because she asked me what I want, and I don't think I'll get anything. The answer is not there, so she may change her mind and come back with banana or frozen blueberry, but that's one other event that I thought was interesting. The fourth idea of the event that I can think of is quite interesting. This is dealing with the company and how to communicate so that they have a good vision and strategy and ideas to work on, from the board, from the company management, from the CEO, the whole organization. I was sharing my thought and ideas how to do that. There has been difficulties to go through it. So it's like I call plan, do, check, act. You check what's going on, develop the understanding, and then plan how to say it and communicate, and check how it happens, and come back to learn. And so it's a continuous process. It's taking time month after month, but starting to show some benefit. So that was on one end important point of given the limitation of the resources of the time and figure out how to do it. That's the strategy anyway. But this morning I was looking at this book by Matsushita. The title is Not for Bread Alone. And in there I was surprised that he's got lots of good saying, and many of those, actually almost 100% of what he was saying, I have been practicing. And it is not meant to be too arrogant about it, but more appreciative to the fact that Konosuke Matsushita, very famous and well-developed person, and my view is very similar to communicate. Of course, he's got more power and ideas with all the experience than mine, so he's very famous. But finding this book and just opening up one page was just by accident. And it's like after I was away for 2.5 years and many books are thrown away, I asked a few books to keep it, and this is one of them. And I haven't opened up this book for 20 years or more, but amazingly, I'm practicing lots of what he's talking about in what I'm doing. So that's the communication between Matsushita and myself, as if I feel like he's alive in me, and I've been immersed with this thinking, whatever way it happened, because I like what he said from my early days in 30s. So I studied and read and so forth. So that's a very interesting, encouraging, and his point, such as a meek mind, which I have videos on, or the sincere and truthful mind, Sunao mind, is the core of his teaching. And one of the points he described in that book is about having a good intention, kokorozashi in Japanese. Intention is not quite, but it's a sincere desire of wanting to do things following the law of nature to make it happen the best you can. So that's his view, and this book was going into more detail, and I can relate very well and very happy about being able to connect to the book. So that was a good communication. And in the other book, Matsushita said, when you talk with someone, like in my case of dealing with the people and the company and communicate, not just this company, but other companies, it applies everywhere, you have to not just convince yourself with logic and the way you think, but understand who you are talking with and their background, and therefore your communication is smoothly or streamlined so that the synchronization and connection inspiring moment maybe you had. Everybody's got different background, so that's a way of figuring out the communication. And so that's very persuasive, and I cannot disagree at all. And the last part of this is about the Buddha's teaching, because talk to the person, understanding their background, where they are at, is a way of Buddha known as the taiki seppo in Japanese, which is the same as to say when you talk about the Dhamma or the law, understand the receiver's background and how you can communicate. So each person's background may be different, therefore approach of sharing the idea could be different. So to me, that's the same idea behind my doing this YouTube or the voice memo, because I go through my life with so many different events, like I mentioned in the last day about this happening, and those give an opportunity for me to have a calm and quiet mind, to figure out how I can synthesize and make sense of the whole instead of all fragmented. And that's the whole point of this running the company, from the board, the CEO, to the company, to have the shared view of how to process ideas. And that's the same as Matsushita's book, Not for Bread Alone is the title in English, not just bread to live, the meaning in how we live and why and how or what we can do about it. So that's the way of us working together. So that's very powerfully and convincing. But Buddha's way is about the taiki seppo, talking to person in certain way. But there's another book which I found it interesting, and I think it's in English is Stanipata, or in Sanskrit or the Indian Hindu language, the words of Buddha. And I have this book. This is another one that I've read lots of underlines and revisiting, and I could come up with various interesting phrases that I can relate to about this, how to overcome our communication between persons or within ourselves. So let me just go through it very quickly. Each of them is so profound, I want to spend more time, and if I have a chance to do that, I want to do that. But one of them is about the way how to handle. This is called the horn of rinocesis, I believe, in English, which is basically to say, especially when you are learning and finding the way to live as sincerely and truthfully, his suggestion is to live like a horn of the rinoceros, which is live alone. You focus on what you need to do and don't be bothered. Maybe he didn't say it that way, but let's focus the passage into the future. It may be more applicable when you are young, especially when we don't know how to go about, so that you don't get to trapped into certain friends, not the necessarily good ones. So I think there was another quote from Buddha somewhere in this book. I couldn't find it, but that basically says, if you are to relate to, then relate to good friends, not the bad one, and make sure that you don't get lost by getting involved in the wrong direction with those influence of the bad friend. So similar to this horn of rinoceros, he was talking about the friendship and communication, understanding, and living in a certain way. And to finish this, I have coupled them with Buddha, but I don't think I can go into it because it itself is so profound. But let me see if I can pick some phrase that I was looking previously, 143. This is Stanipata 143, which is about compassion, if you can call it. So I may just say a couple sentences, 143 and 144, translating from Japanese. For those who have accomplished the ideals of a peaceful state, that person should do the following. You have to utilize your talent, straightforward, righteous. The words are compassionate and gentle. And you shouldn't be overconfident. So that's one, simple. Second, 144. Learn enough is enough. Live with small amount of food. No unnecessary works. Life is simple. Your sensory mechanism is not agitated but calm and clear in mind. Not to be too obsessed with yourself, and never waste, especially when you're with other people. That's the one. Maybe it's 359. There's another one, 359. And this is just totally amazing, from 359 to 375. I just skimmed through it. I want to come back, but if I may just pick one. This is about how you navigate or live your life in the world. And let's just pick this one, 365. There may be a bunch of others, but I have some underlined here. Whether something you like or you don't like, let go. Don't get caught up, attached to anything, and be away from the binding of various kind. Then he will live his life in a proper manner. So there are more others, but for the sake of time and summary, what did I get out of this title? I thought is how to overcome our communication gap. I think the bottom line is, if I might use my word, to connect to the essence, the core of who we are. And what is that core? That's a big discussion, but to me the core is the law of nature, or you can call the God's way or Buddha's way, whatever the term, or it could be a heaven's way, the law of heaven, Temme, connecting to the principle of the universe and utilize the best of what we got with connecting to others in the society to manifest what is proper. And that's the way to navigate our life, by having a good communication with others. The life would bring in lots of unknowns, and we may be shaken here and there. But if we have some references and friends, as if I have those books around me, and open up and connect and confirm, to have the energy welling up from inside to process, to live our life. I guess that's what I like to do and keep on doing moving forward. Thank you.